big public companies and banks are now being cast as a role of an admission police, having to cut off businesses or lending to companies, often smaller companies that have not yet reduced their own admissions. This will have the unintended consequences of fueling a backlash against our big companies, and it will promote a narrative big versus small, and will create greater and greater political polarization.
The day after Bitcoin ETFs hit the market, BlackRock CEO Larry Fink said, "Get ready. More is to come, including tokenization." The asset management giant may now be looking to list an equivalent product for Ether, the native token of the Ethereum blockchain, as part of its ongoing journey toward tokenization. So Larry Fink sees a case for spot Ethereum ETF. But will it get approval? Let's analyze. BlackRock's Larry Fink says Bitcoin and Ether ETFs are stepping stones to tokenization. Bitcoin exchange-traded funds have arrived after a hard-fought battle between the crypto industry and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, the biggest asset manager in the world, thinks it's just the first step toward a new financial world. ETFs were seen as a way to give investors exposure to a young and risky asset class. But the value of blockchain technology providers goes beyond Bitcoin, and the new ETFs are just a precursor to broader tokenization of other assets, Fink said. ETFs are step one in the technological revolution in the financial markets, he said. Step two is going to be the tokenization of every financial asset. The Wall Street giant was one of 11 firms, including Fidelity and ARK Invest, that kicked off a new era for digital assets with the advent of the spot price Bitcoin exchange-traded fund. Total flows in the Bitcoin ETF, meaning funds entering the market, leaving, or switching products, hit an eye-watering $4.6 billion on day one. Many are now casting an eye on the potential advent of Ether ETFs, as market watchers say the rollout of crypto ETFs plows the ground for tokenizing traditional assets, such as stocks and bonds. "I see value in having an Ethereum ETF," they said during an interview. "These are just stepping stones towards tokenization. I really do believe that this is where we're going. We have the technology to tokenize today." Analysts are hinting that the new offerings may be launched before the end of the second quarter. The details of those billions of dollars in flows remain fuzzy. Still, the influx probably stems from investors eager to access Bitcoin as it rallies on the back of a fading bear market and a favorable interest rate environment. With inflation largely tamed, investors are rotating out of fixed income instruments, such as government bonds, and back into stocks, which are poised to benefit from lower interest rates. Bitcoin, as it happens, has also rallied at such moments because it's become a risk-on asset. Then there's the issue of costs. ETFs have revolutionized investing thanks to their super cheap fees. By charging investors only 0.12% in fees, iShares iBit was one of the least expensive ETFs on the market. Fink's been a fan of tokenization, the process of adding financial assets to a blockchain, for some time. The next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be the tokenization of securities, he said. He joins a gaggle of Wall Street's finest too, with Citigroup and HSBC launching tokenized bonds and other pro-blockchain products. According to Markets and Markets research, the niche is expected to balloon to as large as $5.6 billion by 2026. Analysts point to lower costs and faster settlement times via tokenization, and Fink went as far as saying today that the technology eliminates all corruption by having a tokenized system. Just recently, the iShares Bitcoin ETF began trading in another landmark moment that advances ETF innovation and expands access to Bitcoin for investors, Fink said Friday during a fourth-quarter earnings call for BlackRock, which manages more than $10 trillion in assets. Talking about the crypto market movers, Bitcoin erased almost all of its weekly gains, dropping 6%. Ethereum is up in the last 24 hours, trading at just over $2,600 as investors bet on the next ETF play. Solana posted today's biggest losses. "I do believe it is an alternative source for wealth holding," he told reporters. "I don't believe it's ever going to be a currency. I believe it's an asset class. Bitcoin is also an asset class that could protect investors in uncertain times, he maintained, and it represents something similar to what gold has been for thousands of years. Why Fink's comments matter to an ETH ETF? BlackRock originally changed how people thought about whether a spot Bitcoin ETF would even be possible when the financial titan filed for their own offering in June 2023. They now have their own spot in the Ethereum ETF proposal as well. Many of the other same financial institutions, such as ARK and Fidelity, that saw their spot Bitcoin ETF products launch, have also filed for spot Ether ETFs with the SEC. VanEck is first in line for the potential approval of their spot Ethereum ETF product, with a final deadline for a decision from the SEC set for May 23rd. ETH ETF may face regulatory hurdles. While Ether is often lumped in with Bitcoin as the two major blue-chip crypto projects, there are concerns that a spot Ether ETF approval could be a more complex proposal. Much of the uncertainty around such a financial product has to do with the potential classification of Ether, which is the underlying crypto asset of the Ethereum system, as a security. Spot Bitcoin ETFs gained regulatory approval from the Securities and Exchange Commission last week, but not every company and politician was on board. The Titanic money manager Vanguard said, "It will not offer investors spot Bitcoin ETFs because of its long-standing belief that cryptocurrency's high volatility runs counter to its goal of helping investors generate positive real returns over the long term." The firm's criticism of crypto echoed comments from Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who said the same day that the SEC's approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs was wrong on the law. The lawmaker urged the SEC not to let crypto burrow even deeper into the American financial system. Still, she was hit with a community note. It pointed out that U.S. courts deemed the approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs lawful last year. On Capitol Hill, a handful of lawmakers aren't too happy with the SEC after the agency's compromised X account falsely said spot Bitcoin ETFs were approved last week, causing $90 million in liquidations. Describing it as a disturbing and unacceptable failure, House Financial Services Chairman Patrick McHenry demanded a briefing on the incident in a letter signed by 3 other members of Congress. When asked whether the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF could open the door for other crypto asset ETF approvals, such as a spot Ethereum ETF, SEC Chair Gary Gensler stated, "I look at what we did this week as its cabin to one non-security commodity called Bitcoin." That said, Brown Rudnick partner Preston Burns says there may not be many regulatory roadblocks to a spot Ethereum ETF approval. So far, the only American regulator to assert that Ethereum is a security in an enforcement action is the NYAG's office, Burns said. Ethereum's possible status as an unregistered security is a minority view, especially given the fact that the Ethereum Foundation's 2014 sale of Ether is now well past the statute of limitations. We would expect diligent lawyering to address the point in required statutory investor disclosures, but would not expect too much more regulatory interference beyond that. So that's it. What do you think about BlackRock's remarks? Comment down your thoughts. Hit the like buttons and subscribe for more investing news.